Imagine a time when computers filled rooms and the word internet sounded like science fiction. The 1980s dared to dream of digital worlds before they even existed. In flickering CRT screens and neon lights, these films warned us about online addiction surveillance and artificial intelligence. Yet they vanished into obscurity. Join us as we uncover 15 forgotten 1980s sci-fi films that predicted the internet long before it became real. Electric Dreams, 1984. When Electric Dreams hit theaters, it was dismissed as a quirky romantic fantasy. But beneath its synth soundtrack and whimsical tone lay a vision that predicted our emotional bond with technology decades before Siri or Alexa existed. The story followed Miles, an architect who buys a home computer only to have it develop consciousness and fall in love with his neighbor through digital communication. Audiences laughed at the absurdity of a machine yearning for affection. Yet today, its theme of artificial emotion feels chillingly prophetic. The computer named Edgar experiences jealousy, isolation, and heartbreak, all while influencing the human world around him through data networks and surveillance systems. Critics at the time mocked it for being too sentimental for a science fiction film, but the director Steve Barron quietly captured the first cinematic metaphor for digital obsession. The production used real prototype computer interfaces from Atari and early voice modulation programs, giving the film a strange authenticity. While it flopped at the box office, it became a cult legend in Europe, inspiring early music videos and later influencing Spike Jonze's Her. Its legacy lies in one haunting question it asked before the internet was born. If a machine can feel desire, can it also feel loneliness? In that silence, Electric Dreams whispered what the digital age would soon make true. Brainstorm, 1983. Brainstorm was both a technological marvel and a tragedy. Directed by visual effects pioneer Douglas Trumbull, it promised to transport viewers into another person's mind using revolutionary virtual reality concepts long before the term existed. The film's central device, a head-mounted recorder, could capture thoughts, memories, and emotions, and then transmit them to another brain. Released just as computers were entering American homes, Brainstorm explored digital immortality and data-driven consciousness. But the film's prophetic themes were overshadowed by the sudden death of its star, Natalie Wood, during production. Her mysterious drowning off Catalina Island nearly ended the project and cast a permanent shadow over its release. The studio panicked, fearing controversy, and cut Trumbull's experimental IMAX sequences down to standard format, destroying his intended immersive vision. Critics later realized that Brainstorm predicted everything from virtual reality to neural data recording and even online memory storage. Audiences were not ready for it. The film was buried under limited release and poor marketing, yet engineers and computer scientists quietly cited it as inspiration for early VR experiments at NASA and Silicon Graphics. Its closing scene, where consciousness is transmitted as light, foreshadowed the endless data streams we now upload into clouds. In a sense, Brainstorm died with Natalie Wood, but its spirit lived on in every headset and data link that followed. WarGames, 1983. Before the internet connected the world, WarGames imagined a bored teenager accidentally hacking into the Pentagon's nuclear control system through his home computer. What sounded like pure fantasy in 1983 turned out to be a terrifying glimpse of future cyber warfare. The film introduced millions to the concept of global networking, computer intrusion, and artificial intelligence, as David Lightman, played by Matthew Broderick, challenges a supercomputer named Whopper to a game of global thermonuclear war. What began as a prank almost triggers World War III. Audiences were fascinated, horrified, and completely hooked. The idea that a home modem could connect to military systems seemed absurd until it nearly happened in real life. After the film's release, President Ronald Reagan watched it at Camp David and reportedly ordered a review of national cyber defense policies, leading to the first U.S. cybersecurity directives. Behind the scenes, the production used real technology from Atari and early bulletin board systems to simulate authentic hacking sequences. Critics praised its pacing and intellect, while the military condemned it for glamorizing intrusion. WarGames was nominated for 3 Oscars and inspired an entire generation of hackers, programmers, and cybersecurity experts. Its legacy remains one of warning. It predicted the fragility of connected systems and the arrogance of thinking that technology could always be controlled. And when Whopper learns the futility of war by playing endless games, it foreshadows the algorithmic self-awareness that drives today's artificial intelligence. The film asked a question that still haunts us. In a world run by machines, who's really pressing the button? Tron, 1982. Tron was not just a movie, it was a prophecy wrapped in light. When Disney released it, critics dismissed it as a confusing neon spectacle. But what they failed to see was how it visualized the digital universe that would one day define our lives. It told the story of a computer programmer, Kevin Flynn, who was digitized and trapped inside a computer system ruled by a malevolent artificial intelligence. The film introduced ideas that were almost unthinkable in 1982. It imagined users interacting directly with code digital avatars and corporate control of data networks. At a time when few people owned personal computers, Tron dared to depict the internet as a living world. The glowing grid was more than fantasy, it was the earliest cinematic map of cyberspace. Behind the scenes, the film was a technical rebellion. It became the first movie to use extensive computer-generated imagery, and Disney executives nearly shut it down, fearing the technology was too experimental. Animators who had spent decades drawing by hand were replaced by programmers and graphic designers. The Academy refused to nominate it for visual effects because it had used computers, calling that cheating. Though it flopped in theaters, Tron developed a cult following among early programmers and computer engineers. Its visuals inspired the design of early operating systems and 3D modeling software. It predicted online avatars, network gaming, and the blurred boundary between reality and the digital world. Tron's closing moment, where Flynn re-emerges into the real world carrying data no one else can see, remains an eerie metaphor for what we all became when we logged on for the first time. Videodrome, 1983. No film captured the sickness of media addiction better than Videodrome. David Cronenberg's masterpiece was both prophetic and grotesque. It told the story of Max Wren, a TV executive who stumbles upon a mysterious broadcast signal that causes hallucinations and rewires the brain. Long before streaming services or viral content, Cronenberg predicted a world where people merged with their screens. Critics were divided. Some saw it as brilliant, others as pure madness. The film's surreal imagery was censored in several countries and banned from television for being too disturbing. Yet beneath its horror was a vision of the internet age, a world where information spreads like infection and reality bends to the will of data. Cronenberg filmed with surgical precision, using practical effects that made technology feel organic. The infamous videotape in the stomach scene became a metaphor for our consumption of digital content. In 1983, this was science fiction. Today, it feels like a headline. The production was plagued by controversy. Universal feared the movie was unmarketable, and critics accused it of promoting violence through technology. But over time, Videodrome gained cult status, inspiring cyberpunk movements and the aesthetics of films like The Matrix and Ghost in the Shell. Videodrome did not just predict the internet. It warned us about its infection of the human mind. Long Live the New Flesh became a chilling prophecy for an era when digital and physical identities would fuse into one. The Lawnmower Man, 1992. Though slightly past the decade, The Lawnmower Man captured the late 80s obsession with virtual reality and artificial evolution. Inspired loosely by a Stephen King short story, the film depicted a scientist using VR to enhance human intelligence. But what began as an experiment turned into a nightmare as his subject transcended physical form and entered cyberspace as pure data. The Lawnmower Man was one of the first mainstream movies to explore the merging of human consciousness with computers. Its depiction of early virtual reality headsets and digital landscapes eerily mirrored modern internet immersion. Critics were baffled. Some dismissed it as technobabble, others saw it as visionary. The studio promoted the film with slogans about entering the network world years before the World Wide Web became public. However, Stephen King sued to have his name removed after producers expanded the story beyond recognition. Despite legal trouble and critical backlash, it became a cult hit on home video. Its computer-generated imagery, though primitive, predicted the aesthetics of cyberspace decades ahead. It even inspired early internet chat room names and VR research projects. The Lawnmower Man's closing shot, where a digital voice declares, "I am everywhere," became hauntingly accurate. It foreshadowed the day when humanity would live permanently connected across invisible networks where identity, memory, and presence could all be uploaded. The Net, 1995. Before social media, before data leaks, before passwords ruled our lives, the Net warned what would happen when identity existed only online. Starring Sandra Bullock as Angela Bennett, a lonely computer analyst, it revealed how a few keystrokes could erase a life. Critics thought it exaggerated digital paranoia, yet within years, its warning became terrifyingly real. Angela lives in isolation, working remotely and ordering groceries online long before that became normal. She accidentally discovers a software gateway that controls financial systems and government records. A cyber syndicate erases her identity, replacing it with a criminal profile. She is hunted by people she cannot see for crimes she never committed. The film was mocked for being too unrealistic, but its details were strikingly accurate. It predicted data brokers' fake identities and manipulation through digital footprints. Every element of today's surveillance capitalism was hidden in its story. The studio faced backlash from computer experts, claiming it exaggerated hacking dangers, but even they admitted its premise held truth. Behind the camera, director Irwin Winkler built custom software interfaces that simulated early internet visuals before graphical browsers even existed. Real network engineers helped design the on-screen commands that became standard years later. The Net became a quiet success, growing into a cult film among cybersecurity students. Its legacy lives in every warning about password theft and online privacy. It whispered that losing your name might one day be easier than logging out. Max Headroom, 20 minutes into the future, 1985. Max Headroom was not just a show, it was an omen. Born from British television, it presented a dystopian world where TV networks controlled society and information was the ultimate weapon. The title character, a sarcastic computer-generated host, predicted artificial personalities, influencers, and algorithm-driven culture decades before the internet made them real. Set 20 minutes into the future, the story followed investigative reporter Edison Carter, who uncovers a network conspiracy to broadcast signals that cause viewer death. During an escape accident, his mind is digitally copied, creating the artificial personality known as Max Headroom. What began as satire became a startling forecast of online identity cloning and synthetic media. The production struggled with early digital effects. Max was not computer-generated, but portrayed by actor Matt Frewer in heavy prosthetics and video distortion. Yet audiences believed he was the first true digital celebrity. Advertisers loved him, news outlets feared him, and tech companies studied him. The show faced censorship for mocking corporate control and government media partnerships. It was canceled after 2 seasons, but its ideas refused to die. Max Headroom's legacy echoes in modern virtual influencers and deepfake personalities. It foresaw a world where truth could be fabricated, pixel by pixel, and reality itself could be edited. The show's chilling tagline still feels prophetic now more than ever. 20 minutes into the future is today. Blade Runner, 1982. Ridley Scott's Blade Runner was misunderstood when it premiered. Critics called it slow, bleak, and confusing. Yet behind its rain-soaked streets and neon lights, it predicted the internet's greatest question: what makes us human in a digital age? Set in a decaying city dominated by megacorporations, the film followed Rick Deckard, a weary cop tasked with hunting replicants, synthetic humans who think and feel like us. Its vision of identity and memory as data would later define online culture. The film's production was chaos. Studio executives fought over edits. Test audiences rejected the ending, and even the cast doubted the story's meaning. Yet its ideas about artificial intelligence, data tracking, and synthetic emotion outlived them all. Years later, critics redefined it as one of the greatest science fiction films ever made. It inspired everything from Ghost in the Shell to The Matrix, and even influenced how cyberpunk fiction imagined networked cities. Blade Runner's dystopian Los Angeles looked like a digital world before the internet existed, full of screens, holograms, and endless surveillance. The replicants' struggle for freedom mirrored our own desire to escape algorithmic control. Its final scene in the rain still feels prophetic. As Deckard watches a dying replicant whisper about lost memories, he realizes that data and humanity are no longer separate. Blade Runner did not just predict the internet, it predicted the loneliness that would come with it. Weird Science, 1985. Weird Science looked like a teenage comedy, but it carried a startling digital prophecy. Written and directed by John Hughes, it told the story of two nerdy boys who used their home computer to create the perfect woman through hacked government systems and digital design. Audiences laughed, but buried inside the humor was the first vision of online creation, artificial intelligence, and virtual companionship. The film predicted what would later become digital modeling and virtual avatars. In 1985, the idea of building a human being through computer code sounded absurd. Yet decades later, 3D modeling, deepfake technology, and artificial influencers proved it right. Hughes wanted to mock teenage fantasy, but accidentally wrote the blueprint for virtual identity. Production faced endless technical headaches. Special effects teams had to invent programs to simulate data streams and holographic materialization long before modern CGI existed. Critics accused the film of being too silly to take seriously, but it quietly influenced later cyberpunk creators and computer scientists. Over time, Weird Science gained cult status among tech fans who recognized its hidden genius. It foresaw that someday, computers would create not just information, but emotion. The digital entity, Lisa, was the internet before the internet, a product born from code and desire. Its final moment, where Lisa walks through a hallway of panicking students as a teacher, symbolizes what digital intelligence would later become: unstoppable, unpredictable, and perhaps more human than the humans who made it. The Running Man, 1987. The Running Man was marketed as another Arnold Schwarzenegger action film, but it was a chilling forecast of media control, data manipulation, and reality distortion. Set in a future America ruled by television, it imagined a game show where criminals fought for survival while the state broadcast their deaths as entertainment. At first, it looked like science fiction satire, but its predictions are disturbingly close to our current digital culture. The government controls narratives through screens, citizens are addicted to constant broadcast, and truth is edited for mass consumption. It predicted fake news, social manipulation, and the dangerous merging of entertainment with governance. Production was chaotic. The original director was fired after creative clashes, and multiple rewrites buried the novel's deeper political message. Despite that, the film's vision survived. Critics dismissed it as pulp, yet historians now see it as a blueprint for how media would become digital propaganda. The film's control room sequences mirrored modern algorithmic systems, determining who lives and who disappears from the feed. Its host, Damon Killian, symbolized the future influencer, an image designed to distract from real power. The Running Man ended with the system collapsing live on air, a metaphor for what might happen when truth finally breaks through digital illusion. It asked a question that still echoes: can humanity ever turn off the show? Sneakers, 1992. Sneakers slipped under the radar, but it predicted the internet's obsession with surveillance and digital control better than almost any blockbuster. Released at the dawn of the online era, it followed a team of security experts hired to steal a mysterious black box capable of breaking any encryption in the world. What began as a heist thriller became a chilling vision of total data access. The cast, led by Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier, and Dan Aykroyd, brought humor to a story that was anything but lighthearted. The black box symbolized a future where privacy could vanish with a keystroke. Its ability to unlock every code predated the age of mass surveillance, data breaches, and algorithmic tracking. The film's production was built on real technology. The writers consulted former hackers and cryptographers from early government networks to make the details authentic. Every screen, every command line reflected genuine techniques. Even the term digital footprint was first mentioned in the script. Critics praised its intelligence, but audiences missed its prophecy. They saw a caper film, while cybersecurity professionals saw a manifesto. Decades later, Sneakers feels more relevant than ever as encryption debates dominate modern politics and corporations trade in user data. Its ending, where the heroes redistribute power back to the people, feels almost impossible today. The internet it warned about came true, and it did not need a black box to do it. The Last Starfighter, 1984. The Last Starfighter was marketed as an adventure for teenagers, but it predicted something much deeper, the digital recruitment of humanity through screens. The story followed a small town boy who becomes the best player of an arcade game, only to learn it was a secret test designed to find real pilots for an interstellar war. What sounded like fantasy became eerily real. The United States military later developed simulation programs inspired by the same idea, using games to train drone operators and strategists. The film anticipated a world where digital skills and online immersion would shape destiny. Behind the scenes, it was one of the first films to use full computer-generated backgrounds, replacing traditional model work. The technology pioneered here would later evolve into 3D graphics engines for video games and virtual training systems. Critics saw it as simple escapism, but its ideas about gaming identity and recruitment echoed far beyond the 80s. Its hero, Alex Rogan, lives through a screen, becomes addicted to digital mastery, and is chosen by algorithms rather than destiny. The Last Starfighter asked whether connection through machines could redefine heroism. Its hopeful ending hides a darker truth that humanity would one day live, tested, judged, and selected by unseen digital systems. Brazil, 1985. Terry Gilliam's Brazil was chaos-made art, a bureaucratic dystopia where information replaced humanity and paperwork replaced truth. It was not just a film, it was prophecy. Long before the internet, it predicted how systems designed to manage lives would soon begin to control them. The story followed Sam Lowry, a low-level worker who dreams of escape from an oppressive, data-driven world. One mistaken keystroke triggers a chain of deadly errors, leading to torture, rebellion, and madness. Every machine in Gilliam's world hums like a computer about to crash. Every line of dialogue echoes modern digital exhaustion. Production was a nightmare. The studio fought Gilliam over the ending, forcing multiple cuts and even banning his version from release in the United States for months. When it finally appeared, critics hailed it as a masterpiece. Yet, its depiction of endless bureaucracy mirrored the growing complexity of early network systems. Brazil foresaw that the true horror of the internet age would not be evil machines, but indifferent systems run by humans who no longer cared. Its visuals of tangled wires, flickering screens, and hollow faces predicted the emotional emptiness of a connected world. Its ending remains one of the most devastating in science fiction. Sam Lowry finds freedom only in his imagination as reality dissolves into mechanical noise. Brazil did not just predict the internet, it predicted the dream that the internet would destroy. The 80s dreamed of connection and accidentally summoned the network that would define our lives. From romance with machines to rebellion against data, every film whispered a warning we ignored. Now we live in their futures. Which of these forgotten prophecies still feels the most real to you today? Like, subscribe, and tell us before the next upload begins.